Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Betfair Hollywood Park on a picture-perfect Southern California Saturday afternoon. We've got a good card today, the feature race, the American Handicap. Many good gambling opportunities and a very special guest joining me out here in the paddock, taking time off from a very busy, bogged-down schedule. Kentucky Derby winning and Preakness winning trainer Doug O'Neill. Doug, thank you for coming out here today.
Thank you, Kurt.
Now, just that introduction alone tells me how much your life has changed. A month ago, it would have been trainer Doug O'Neill. He's got a couple horses in today. How much has your life changed because of your experiences in the last 3 weeks in Kentucky and Baltimore?
It's all changed for the good. Everything's been fantastic, and just to be surrounded or to have an opportunity to work with a horse like I'll Have Another, just extremely blessed, and it's been, Mario has just been the greatest representative of the horse and of California, of Vancouver, of Mexico, and of Redham. So it's been an absolute blast.
I know, having been back for those races years ago, Doug, and working at those races, time flies by with the Derby, Preakness, and Belmont. It feels like one race is over, and all of a sudden you're in Baltimore, all of a sudden in New York. Is it still a little bit surreal? Have things slowed down at all, or how has the whole experience been as far as all this excitement compacted into 3 weeks?
Yeah, you do wish you could push like a pause button and kind of slow it down a little bit, but it has gone very fast. But we have a tremendous team that is with I'll Have Another, and actually, I just talked to them right now. They were having trouble finding a house to rent.
Yeah,
they're getting a little picky now that they want the first two parts of the Triple Crown.
And Redham definitely has the bankroll to get a pretty nice house back there for the boys.
Yeah, I don't even know if the guys can swim, but they have a pool.
Well, that's
big
to have in New York.
Good, yeah, you got to have a pool in New York, and so it's just been so cool to enjoy this whole thing with all the guys, and we got a grown man who calls himself Thumper. So that tells you about one of the guys. And then just the grooms and the exercise riders and the hot walkers. Just got a fun crew, and they're all, as I've gotten to know these guys better, and it's been a lot of fun.
I know people sometimes don't realize how many people there are behind the scenes. You're talking about grooms, hot walkers. These people basically live with the horses. They know them better than you do, and better than most trainers do. How much has all this, helped having? It was a nice article on Jack Sisterton today, your assistant. Leandro Moore keeps things going out here. Your brother Dennis, who bought the horse, looks for things. How much does that team help you from being overwhelmed in a situation like this?
Oh, it's been huge. It's been a great way to kind of, just spread all the attention, if you will, and Lava Man taking a lot of the attention away from. Yes, yeah, and. It's so funny. There's probably 2 to 1 people who come to the barn wanting to see Lava Man over I'll Have Another. So, it's really been very cool that way. And we brought so many people, quote unquote, backstage who love horses but don't know a lot about racing, but love racing, but want to learn more. And just for them to meet Lava Man, them to meet I'll Have Another, it's been a blast to be part of it.
Have you learned to say no yet?
To some, usually just family members. Yeah.
People have been real pests over the years, and now they're coming out of the woodwork because you're famous and winning the Derby.
Toughest on the ones you love. That's how I answer that.
Talking about family, story well documented. Your brother Dennis is the guy who picked the horse out. Horse originally sold for $11,000. Your brother Dennis bought him for $35,000. Your brother Dennis and your late brother Danny and you have been in the racing for many years. You grew up kind of like I did, I think, betting on horses, coming to the races, not being around the animals, just going to that point of the game. Your brother Danny passed away years ago. You and Dennis are still together. How much more does this mean to you that it's being done with your brother, who I assume is your best friend, if not one of your best friends, your best friend?
Oh, yes. No, he's my brother and my best friend. And, right out of high school, I got involved with the horses, and then my late brother Danny and Dennis bought a 10-acre ranch out in Temecula, and we had layup horses out there, and we had a few mares, we had foals, so it was kind of a real family thing as I got started in it, and it's something that we're all first generation, so we're just absolutely are doing it because we love it.
You don't come from a horseman's family, and were raised at the racetrack.
Yeah, which at times you get bummed because you wish you had somebody kind of showing you the way around and stuff. But it's been nice in a way to kind of experience all the trials and errors and all the highs and lows and figure it out along the way.
I said earlier, I'm a fairly low-key guy. Your brother Dennis defines low-key. I mean, he stays in the shadows. He's always in the periphery. He's low-key. He doesn't want to be the center of attention. How have the two of you celebrated privately, or do you even want to get into that? Have you guys done anything where it's like, good, we're away from everybody now, let's really enjoy it. We won the damn Derby. I mean, what have you guys done?
Yeah. Dennis is funny. He's definitely a lot more introverted, and his way of celebrating would be hanging out, probably by himself watching like the races from another country or something. I don't know. Dennis, I love
Betting on
that
a game, maybe,
Yeah,
taking
betting on
it
a
to
game.
Lakers, something.
Yeah, Dennis's form of therapy is just real quiet and mellow, and mine is maybe eat a little bit. Probably hard to tell.
I've noticed that.
Yeah,
in
and
the
then
past
eat a
few
little
months.
more. Yeah, yeah, we've I love him, and again, he's there, highs and lows, and he's the eyes who picked out the horse.
I'll tell you one thing I've enjoyed watching you and your family and the people who work for you and Paul Redham. I think too many times in this game we get so jaded and cynical and sour. And even I see when people win, they act like they're going to the executioner. I mean, all it is, well, the next race is in 2 weeks. I don't know how. We'll see what's happening. We'll tell you later. I watch you guys, and I said, boy, if I ever had a good horse, that's what I'd do. Throw my hat, have a beer, go out to dinner with everybody, get on the private jet. And I mean, I don't know what's happened having a good time in this business, but over the years you've seen people act like, God, this is the worst that ever happened. You guys are enjoying it, and I've known you for a lot of years. I know it's sincere. I know that's how you are. Have you just had a great time doing this and going through this?
We have, and it is. There's a lot of times when you can get bogged down in the lows of the game, and I've just been blessed with two great parents and a real good friend of mine's father who constantly was drilling into me about see the good in everything, and as I've grown and gotten older, it's really paid off, because there are in this game and in any business you can see the downside and really worry about it and get bogged down on it, and we've just been able to enjoy this and just enjoy the ride the most we can.
Yeah. You touched on it, and I'm going to touch on it. You mentioned the tough times. You've gone through some trying times. You've been fighting, a legal battle over some issues for quite a while. You have the CHRB meeting on Thursday. I'm not the late Mike Wallace. This is not 60 Minutes, so this is more for another forum, another time. But the part I wanted to bring up is, have you been able to keep those two things separate and still enjoy the ride with all of another? Have you been able to compartmentalize one issue and then have another Derby and Preakness over here and still enjoy it as much as you would like to?
I have, because of who I have surrounded me, who I've surrounded myself with, and so we know we play by the rules, we do all the right things, and I'm just so grateful the CHRB found that there was no milkshaking that
Yeah, for anyone who missed that part of it, that was a determination. Just to get that on the record, and you received a fine and a suspension because in this business there's a horse a trainer's insurer rule where you're responsible no matter what, so that's what happened. But the point we want to get clear is the milkshake was dismissed.
Yeah, exactly. So it's that was a real big load off, just because you do just get dragged through the mud with so many people who say bad things about you, who've never met you, never hung out with you, never seen the barn, and
never seen Leandro Mora, who's been a horseman for 30, 40 years on this circuit, who's your main assistant.
It's unbelievable, yeah. So it's, but that's all part of it, and you can't always get pats on the back. You got to get kicked in the groin every now and then. So it's all balanced, yin and yang. Get a little bit of everything.
I'm done kicking the groin. That's it for the hard-hitting part of the interview. Now let's have some more fun. I'll have another, Doug. When he came here last summer, broke his maiden on July 3rd, won first time out. When did you know he was a special horse? When he came in the spring, when he first ran? What did you like about him, or has he surprised you how far he's come? I guess you're always surprised with the Derby.
Whenever they win first time out, you're thinking this could be a stakes caliber horse. So I think that was the point, that we thought we had something worthy. But it really wasn't until the Bob Lewis this year that we're like, holy mackerel, he's what we had dreamt of. Yeah. And I think by winning the Bob Lewis, which Paul Redham's the one who directed us there, was such a godsend, because we got more graded money earnings, and we were able to give him 9 weeks before the Santa Anita Derby, and that really kind of set into motion where we are right now.
And you had some earnings from the Best Pal already, which helped last summer. It turned out to be a pretty good race. You and Creative Cause in that race.
Yeah,
right?
But you get a lot of those horses that have a lot of talent, but they just get pressed to start chasing graded money to get into the race, and we were blessed not to be pressed and start chasing graded money.
I know I talked to you right after the Bob Lewis. That was on February 4th. And a lot of times right after the race, the trainer will say, well, we'll see. We don't know what the next race is going to be. We'll see. Let the horse tell us. You said literally after the race, we're not running till Santa Anita Derby. Rarely in this business does the plan work out exactly like you wanted it to. Why did you make that decision so quick that there wasn't going to be a race before the Sandy Derby? It's an unusual approach to the Derby.
You know, that was something that Paul Dennis and I, right after the race, said, let's keep him home and shoot for that. So it was just so rarely are Paul Dennis and I on the same page. You know, usually it kind of takes a little massaging. And right after that, we all agreed that was the right move to run that big off a 5-month layoff. It just made sense that he would need a little extra time to recover from that, and then to have the Grade 1 San Diego Derby in your own backyard 9 weeks, it was a perfect fit.
You mentioned having a team effort. You, Paul, and Dennis were the main three in the organization. I know from betting on horses, there's guys I bet with, and it helps me to have other opinions. And sometimes you get tunnel vision, and you think you're seeing things exactly right, and it takes another guy to say, wait a minute, let's do this way and see how that works. Does that help with you guys bouncing off each other ideas and keeping the ego out of it and just wanting to win?
It does. You know, Paul writes the checks, and you know, he's going to be the bottom line guy. But Paul, you know, has been following horses his whole life, so has a very good opinion. And you know, Dennis, I'm able to kind of bounce a lot of things off Dennis, and
Dennis will tell you when you're full of it, right?
Yeah. Well, Dennis doesn't like the funny thing is the Bob Lewis. Dennis hates being 43-1. In his mind, if your horse is 43,
you're in the wrong race.
You're in the wrong race, and believe me.
But he was 12-1 in the morning line that day.
Was he really?
He was 12-1 in the morning line in Lewis. He was.
That was a bad morning line.
Yeah, it was a bad morning line.
But yeah, you know, Dennis, Paul, and I still joke with him because Dennis is like, I can't believe we're in this spot. I can't believe we're in this spot.
We're embarrassing ourselves.
Yeah,
what are we in here for?
Yeah, brown bag. We're all gonna have to be the unknown comic in the paddock. This is not good, but that just turned up to be an absolute blessing.
But to follow up on that, reports from Nevada, there was a race book there that got hit pretty hard a couple days before that race, and I'll have another. Now, a lot of times these stories are second and third hand, and they turn out to be a lot of nonsense. Anybody at the barn take advantage of 100-1 in Las Vegas?
Oh, my buddy Mark and I had a few bucks on him.
Good.
At 200-1, I think.
Good.
Yeah. So
because so many times those books have taken our money on those future books. It's nice to hammer them one time, isn't it?
Well, so often you bet those future books, A, they don't make the race.
Yeah.
Or if they make the race, you get better odds the day they run than they gave you.
Yeah.
So this is one of the rare times.
Have you guys gone over to collect and smile at the book yet?
We still got that's kind of insurance when we go broke, which will be very soon. We got that to fall back on.
Let's fast forward to Kentucky Derby Day, Doug. As the race is unfolding, I know from being at Churchill Downs, and if any of you have ever been there, it's a great place, but it's next to impossible to watch a race. Unless you have the best seats and you're in some great site with the best binoculars in the world, it's very hard to see what the hell is going on out there. When did you pick up I'll Have Another, and how were you watching the race unfold with Bodemeister in front? Everyone knew it was Bodemeister. After that, you were kind of on your own as to where horses were.
Yeah, like you say, all those corporate tents and everything in the infield, it's impossible to see the backside. And so I was watching one of the big screens, and I saw number 19 pop up fifth. And that's when I kind of locked in on the screen. And as they turned for home, I looked for him, and I saw him, and I could tell he was still 5 or 6 back, but I could see him stretching and coming. And he was just training so good going into the race that I just was so confident he was going to run a big race. And I couldn't believe, you know, watching the replay, I thought he got up like mid-stretch. I didn't realize it wasn't until like the last 100 or 200 yards that he got up. But Mario knew what he had, and just he was so patient. He's given 4 just unbelievably patient, confident rides.
Did you go in that race from the quarter pole? Well, at least we're going to hit the board. This is going to be a respectable race. I'm not embarrassed. Then at the 8th pole, you're thinking, well, running second's not all that bad, because it looked like Bodemeister still had you. What was reaction from the 8th pole to the wire, the 16th pole to the wire? Like, I won? Or how did that even process through your brain at that point?
Going nuts. I know, absolutely. I was with Eddie Freeman, one of Paul's trainers, and then Thumper, our chiropractor, and we were just absolutely losing our mind. We were going nuts. Couldn't believe that it was actually happening.
Do you remember going to the winner's circle? I mean that seriously. Or did things just blur into all of a sudden you're there getting a trophy and smiling?
Yeah, and I remember looking for my son and finding him, and then it was on. I don't know. I can't remember a lot after that, but I remember we were just doing nothing but having a good time.
And Paul Redham also followed up at the mutual windows back there and added to the purse money.
He did.
My kind of guy. Bet on your horse, hit the race, and cash your ticket on the way out.
I know. We kept telling Paul, if you win this race, you know what? And he's like, did you see his odds? Okay, yeah, so Paul's always got to have a little extra action, which is great.
You talked about Mario Gutierrez. Any of you unfamiliar with the story? I'm sure everybody knows it by now. He came down from Hastings Park in Canada last fall to ride down here. 25-year-old native of Mexico City, a top rider at Hastings Park. It's not like this kid came out of nowhere. He was a leading rider at Hastings Park. He'd won a lot of races. but he hadn't been winning races. He ends up on I'll Have Another. So far, Doug, no mistakes. Were you concerned going to the Derby or Preakness about anything going south with Mario, or he's shown you enough to be confident in him as a rider? Because it's one thing to win the Lewis and the San Diego Derby, and then all of a sudden you're at Churchill Downs, then it's leg 2 of the Triple Crown. Were you confident with him, his ability to handle the situation?
Yeah, you know, if you had asked me in January, I didn't even know who Mario really was. I knew that he won a lot of races in Vancouver, and he was a talented kid.
You'd seen his name on the program.
I'd seen his name, exactly,
yeah.
But I'd never met him personally. And after the Lewis, it was a brilliant ride, and Paul and I had said, well, if this kid's ever going to melt down, the San Diego Derby is a perfect place where we're going to see him melt. And he was as comfortable and calm as ever, and he gave a great ride there. And then as we got to Kentucky, you know, the media is all over him, and he gets it double what you and I would get it, because he gets a lot of the Spanish stations want to talk to him. So and he just talked to everybody and was appreciative, and he's handled everything with it. You can't even put it into words how well he's represented the horse and himself and the occupation of being a jockey.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just been awesome.
To follow up, though, now the Belmont still got 2 weeks to go. If he thought pressure was going to be big in Baltimore, Maryland, wait to get to New York City on Belmont Day with the Triple Crown. I've been there for Smarty Jones' Triple Crown, and the atmosphere and the pressure is incredible back there. He's taken a day off to go back to Hastings, Mario Gutierrez has. He's ridden sparingly here. Are you at all concerned that there could be some kind of overthinking or meltdown, for lack of a better word, or are you confident he can handle things even on the big stage in New York, which, as you know, is a big, way different ball game than anywhere else?
I'm confident, you know, and it's funny to show Mario's kind of just a little bit of his not really following anything too seriously. He, when we were at Churchill, Jerry Bailey came over and was talking to us, and I was like, whoa, it's such a cool honor to have Jerry Bailey come. And he left, and Mario's like, hey, who's that guy? And
don't tell Bailey that.
No.
He won't talk to Mario again.
No. So, but the cool thing is, now fast forward, Jerry's offered to get on Lava Man and have Mario get on one of our other horses and go around the Belmont with him and just tell him about this spot of the track, this spot of the track. So how cool would that be?
Yeah, and it's a tricky track.
Yeah.
Now, that's what you... At Pimlico, you took Mario back there early, and he rode a couple races for you at Pimlico. Are you going to do the same thing at Belmont, and how important do you think that is to get him over that mile-and-a-half track? Because it is a whole different type of racetrack there to ride.
It is. Now we're going to have my brother Dennis going to take Paul Rudd and show him all the different betting windows.
Yeah, that's good.
And
the bars that are in the paddock back there at Belmont.
Yeah, you want to get everyone comfortable.
Where they belong during the race.
Belong.
Okay.
Yep. But so
you're going to ride him on a couple, or get him on some horses.
We got him on a few, and then Mark Henning is going to put him on a few. I think Wesley Ward's going to put him on a couple. So, yeah, ideally he rides between 5 or 10 before the big one.
One other concern, Doug, I think going to the Belmont, from having watched past Belmonts, when there's a horse with a target on his back, Smarty Jones, a Big Brown, the horse who have real quiet, the horse who have tried to win the Triple Crown and have failed in a Belmont, a lot of times they won't have one rider in a race. They'll have 3 or 4. Other riders will be trying to make them move early. They'll be trying to intimidate Mario Gutierrez because he's a young kid. How do you approach that? And do you tell Mario anything about that, or just let him ride?
I think you just let him ride. You know, I think Johnny Velasquez tried to race ride Mario a little bit going in the first turn the other day, and Mario was like, whoa, he's trying to bump me out, and Mario just held his ground and kind of squeezed Johnny out of the spot that really wasn't his spot. And so, no, Mario is soft-spoken and as humble as he is. You put him on the back of a horse, and he's as tough as nails.
He's got an edge?
He's got an edge.
Which you want in a race like this. You don't want Mr. Nice Guy out there riding the Belmont.
No, he's nice guy off a horse, but he's Angel Cordero on the back of a horse.
That's what we like to see, Angel Cordero style, because you want to win.
Exactly.
You don't want to go to dinner with everybody after the race and be best friends.
Yep.
You want to win the Belmont.
You play poker with your friends. You take their money.
Exactly. Let's talk, before we get about your horses in today, Doug, about what you're doing with I'll Have Another right now. You're leaving for New York tonight to get back there?
Yep.
What are you doing with him? What's he been doing, and what's the game plan with 2 weeks out?
He's been jogging about 4 or 5 furlongs straight off, and then galloping about 7 furlongs, so somewhere in that 1.25 to 1.5 mile exercise every day. And if anyone's ever seen him gallop, he gallops like a lot of horses breeze, and he just continues to do well. And fortunately, there at Belmont, if the weather gets a little ugly, they got a great training track that handles the weather really well, so we can shoot him over to the training track if we get bad weather. But that's the game plan, is to gallop him right into the race.
Mile and a half. His pedigree screams a mile and a half. I guess there would be no concern there, especially on his bottom side.
Yeah, no, not at all. And you see, even in the Derby and the Preakness, it was towards the end where he really started stretching himself. And
Yeah.
the mile and a half. You know, I was surprised when I read last night that the last 4 Triple Crown winners won the Belmont wire to wire, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, people always think the Belmont's a race where deep closers win, and they rarely, if ever,
Yeah.
do. Usually it's a horse who's on the lead or close at the
Yeah.
3/8 pole and then runs you down in that long stretch. And, boy, that can be a long stretch, can it?
Yeah, I can. Yeah. So, unfortunately, our horse has got tactical speed. So,
Yeah.
if there's not a lot of speed signed up, maybe we could be the 5th.
Do you tell Mario anything to paddock as far as where you want him to be, or do you say, Mario, good luck, I'll see you in the winner's circle? What's your approach, or have you talked about it with Paul Redham yet?
Yeah, you know, we'll see where we draw and everything. But the beauty of Team Redham is everyone's involved. Everyone has a say. And then at the end of the day, once the gates open, then it's up to Mario to he knows the horse and just play it by ear.
All right, let's talk about your horses in today before we wrap things up. You've got a number of runners in. A great name in race number 2 Paul came up with for a horse you guys bought out at the Barrett sale, Cinco de Mario, because you guys won the Derby on Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah.
Cinco de Mario, a first-time starter, $220,000. That's a lot for Dennis and you guys to pay for a horse. How good is this horse? What are you expecting today from Cinco de Mario in race number 2?
He's got talent. He's got a beautiful way of going, but he doesn't act like a horse that would win first time out. He's not overly quick out of the gate. We're putting blinkers on him today, trying to help that out a little bit. But it wouldn't shock me if he won, but I don't think 4.5 furlongs isn't his cup of tea from what I can see watching him train. But
He's not a real precocious.
No,
type.
though he's kind of studdish. You might see him. The groom will look like he's flying a kite out here by the paddock.
Trying to keep him on the ground.
Yeah, he's kind of he's all boy, this horse, but but as long as he behaves himself, he should put in a good run.
Midnight Con in the 4th, a long-time maiden. I know he's probably been frustrating to you. He's been the beaten favorite a number of times. He's looked like a winner a bunch of times. One more time for him today.
I know. He's been such a frustrating horse because he trains so nice and he keeps coming up a little bit short. We got Mario on him today, and hopefully he can win today. Yeah, but these horses that have taken a long time to break their maiden, you just never know when it's going to happen.
Yeah, not a horse to bet a lot of money on today,
No,
but he
no.
could win.
Yeah.
All right,
Yep.
6th race you had a horse in. He is scratched Siempre Mio. Just wanted to touch on him because you got some new owners in the business.
Yeah.
Kobe Bryant and Pau Gasol
Yep.
have a piece of Siempre Mio. In fact, Pau Gasol was going to come here today to see this horse run. How'd you hook up with Kobe and Pau? And on behalf of everyone in this industry, Doug, thanks for getting guys like that into the game. That is a big help to our sport to get mentioned with Pau and Kobe.
That's Mark Verge, the CEO of Santa Anita. He went over to he got invited to the Laker Youth Foundation charity dinner.
Raffle
thing, and he put up the horse, and Pau and Kobe started a little bidding war and just had a blast with it. And
They each had the bankroll to bid with each other. I'm sure they did.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they had enough to go head-to-head for a while.
Yep. But at the end of the dinner, Kobe won, but Mark went up to Pau and said, "Man, why don't you get in too? You guys can both get in." So, like you say, Pau was going to come out today, but he coughed on me a couple times this morning. It's a tough spot, and I want to make it a good experience for them and the horse. And I played the conservative card.
And Dennis saw 12-1 and said, "Doug, you're in the
Yeah,
wrong race."
exactly.
Right?
That's about it.
That was the main thing.
But he'll win. We'll look for a spot in a couple weeks, and with a little bit of luck, he'll win.
And one more horse Dancing to the Stars in race 7. You got Mario Gutierrez, who's kind of become your stable rider in a way. What about Dancing to the Stars in the maiden race in race 7?
She's a nice filly. She's by Good Journey, who these horses tend to get better with more racing and more distance. So, but she's out of I actually trained the mare who was real fast. So I think she could win off the layoff. She ran one time, ran good in her debut, and came up with a few issues. And the Renmar people are so patient. We kicked them out to their farm, got her right, and I think she's got a good chance at a good price today.
She's worth betting on.
I think she is.
Yeah, it's Dancing to the Stars at 8-1 in race number 7. Before I let you go, Doug, your fondest memory so far of the Triple Crown Trail. If you had to say, I got to write down one thing that I'll remember for the rest of my life.
Wow. Well, just being up on that podium, with the whole family and the Redhams and Mario, and that I'll never forget ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you catch yourself saying, I just won the Blanken Kentucky Derby?
Oh,
I mean,
there was a lot of blanking. There was a lot of bleep bleeps. Yeah, there was a lot of bleep bleeps.
I mean, that would be
going
my first reaction.
Yeah.
I just can't believe this happened. Something that,
Yeah.
in this business, I mean, there is no greater thing. It's like the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
Just touching that trophy. I got to touch that trophy once
Yeah.
at Mike Pegram's house, who won the Kentucky Derby, and I was in awe just touching it and looking at it.
Yeah. Well, just being in the paddock with Lucas and Baffert
Yeah.
and Pletcher, and they're all dressed to the nines. Not Baffert wasn't dressed to the nines. I think I was dressed better than Baffert.
You were dressed to the 7+, 8s, yeah.
But
somewhere
Pletcher
there.
and Lucas, I mean, they're sharp dressers,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so there is kind of a little like, wow, do I even belong here? And to win something like that, you realize that it's all about the horse, and if you got the horse, you belong.
Yeah. Before we let Doug go, I got a couple. I'll have another hats to give away. I'm going to ask a trivia question. First one I hear yell out gets this one. How many training titles has Doug O'Neill won at Hollywood Park? Where was 10? There was a 10 over here. There's a 10 over there.
That's my Uncle Bill. Thank you, Uncle Bill.
Doug's publicist for the day.
Yep.
All right, this next one. We talked about Mario Gutierrez coming down from Hastings Park in Canada. He came down for one reason and one reason only. What trainer brought him down here? There was a Troy Taylor right around here somewhere. Find somebody for Troy Taylor. All right. The dam of All Have Another is a mare named Arch's Gal Edith. Anybody under the age of 30 will not get this question. Everybody else might have a chance. Who is the dam named after? What television show?
Wow.
That was very good.
Yes.
Archie and Edith Bunker. How many lengths is All Have Another going to win the Belmont by? 38. Are we going to have a Triple Crown winner this year?
Yes.
There's the last one. All right. Most importantly, I want to thank Doug O'Neill for taking time out. He's been barraged by requests. He's been badgered. He's been hounded. He's been beaten down. Doug, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Appreciate you
Thanks
doing
for all your support, you guys. I appreciate it.
and all the good Doug has done for this business by being positive and putting our game in a positive light out there on television for all the world to see. Thanks for all coming out. Bet for Hollywood Park. Great car to racing. Enjoy the rest of the day. And looking forward to the Belmont in 2 weeks right here at Hollywood Park.